And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome back today crowd favorite, the incredible best-selling author, Anthony Horowitz, here to give us the inside scoop the night before the book comes out in the U.S., Marble Hall Murders. Anthony, welcome back to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Sarah, first of all, may I say what a pleasure it is to be talking to you again, and thank you for having me back. It's lovely to be on air with you, and tell you about the book. What do you want me to tell you? How I wrote it, what the plot is, how well it's done in the UK. What is your?
Let's start with the plot, and then we want to go into the details because I'm so excited. Susan Ryeland is back, and I want to hear all about it. But first, tell our listeners and our watchers what this book is about.
All right, so it follows. It's the third book in the series. It began with Magpie Murders, then Moonflower Murders. It is a standalone murder, Marble Hall Murders, but it does follow the progress of my main character, editor turned sleuth, Susan Ryeland. The last time we saw her at the end of Moonflower Murders, you will recall she had solved the case and she had returned to Crete to be with her sort of live-in lover and boyfriend, Andreas, at the hotel they were running together. It was all doing very, very well. But the third book opens with a surprise that a time has passed and Susan decided that after all, Crete is not for her. She's not interested in running a hotel. She wants to get back into books. So she returns to London, where she is hired by a publishing house sorry, my wife has just walked into the room and taken my concentration away. The dog leads outside on the table in the hall. Sorry, I have an audience here, Jill, who I'm talking to, and Jill wants to know where the dog's leads are. Okay, so she returns from Crete. Sorry about that, everybody. That's life, the life of the writer. A little glimpse into home life.
Love it. And good to know that no matter how successful you are, you still have to walk the dogs. And
I still have to walk the dog, and I still have to know where the lead is and where his harness is. And I left it outside because he swam in the river today and it was soaking wet. Where was I? Crete. She comes back from Crete and takes up her job in publishing again. And this time she becomes a freelance editor, and she is working with a young man who is writing a continuation novel. And to her horror, the continuation novel, and I have written several of these, is about Atticus Pünd. This young boy, Eliot Crace, he's in his 20s, is taking over from Alan Conway, the miserable, nasty Alan Conway, and is writing a new Atticus Pünd mystery. And it turns out that Eliot Crace is the grandson of the world's most famous writer, Miriam Crace, a children's author whose books, The Tiny People, are famous all over the world. Except Eliot Crace didn't like her. She was a monster. He was afraid of her. She ruined his childhood, and he knows she was murdered. And guess what, folks? He has hidden the secret of who killed Grandma inside the new book. And so Susan once again finds herself in serious trouble, unable to escape from the shadows of the past, and once again in danger. And that is a sort of a summary of the new book.
Oh my gosh, a delicious, tantalizing, hook us good summary. And oh my God, Anthony, I have so many questions for you. The audience has so many questions for you. They're already piling in. People submitted questions in advance. We're going to dive into them. First, I just want to welcome everyone because we are broadcasting live to 7 different destinations across Facebook and YouTube, including, of course, our partner in crime, the excellent woman-owned independent Murder by the Book. So if you've been here with us before, you know how this works. And if you're new, welcome, mystery and thriller fans. Every week I give you my handpicked featured authors. So you get to ask them anything. So ask Anthony about his creative process, because this is a very complex book to write. There's a lot of threads to weave here. I want to know all about it. Ask him about Susan. I didn't know if we were going to see Susan again. Anything that you're wondering, just get them going in the comments. I'll get them right over to Anthony. Robin is joining us from Facebook saying hello all from sunny/rainy Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Welcome, Robin. So good to have you here. We have Mark joining us from YouTube saying, Anthony, the legend.
Oh, Mark, and I noticed that Mark has got a cat as his insignia to her left. A cat plays a big part in the new book. Susan is given a cat.
You're a dog person, Anthony.
As you just heard, I am a dog person, and my wife is now taking the dog out for his evening stroll. But I've always had a fondness for cats, and in this new book, I gave Susan a cat.
Perfect. Now let's start with Susan, because I didn't know if we were going to see Susan. I didn't know if she was going to move to Greece, live happily ever after with Andreas, running the hotel. I mean, that sounds, she could have ridden off into the sunset, but she's back. Now, Anthony, was it a surprise to you that she was back, or have you been planning this all along?
Yes and no. I was only ever going to write one of these books, and that was Magpie Murders. I wrote two because my wife Jill, who was just in the room a moment ago, is my TV producer, and in order to sell the TV show, she needed two books, because TV studios and stations and platforms, they like to have continuity, right? So there's plenty of product. So she needed a second book. That was Moonflower Murders. We shot Moonflower Murders in Crete last year, and on the last day of shooting, our star Leslie Manville said, "You know what? I'd like to do a third one." So in 1 year, I had to write the new novel. And then I think I finished the novel on a Tuesday. And on the Wednesday, I then had to adapt it into a 6-part TV series. We are shooting it at the moment. We just started in Corfu today. It was our first day of shooting in Corfu. The book is set in the south of France, but for lots of reasons, we have to shoot it in Greece. So we're back there again. And that is how the new book sort of happened. And I was delighted that Susan Ryeland came back. I got to tell you, Sarah, I write many, many characters, but I really love her because she's a woman of a certain age. She's not really a detective. She is a publisher. She's an editor, and she loves books like I love books. And she's so smart, and she writing as a woman raises my game. I have to really sort of, think about what's going on in her head. She's so smart. I'm surrounded by very, very smart women, and she's sort of based on a little bit of all of them.
I love that. I love that. And I want to hear more about that. Chris is joining us from YouTube saying hello from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Hello, Chris.
Chris, great to have you. Now, Anthony, you are surrounded by, as you said, many smart women, including your wife, who in the acknowledgments you say is your first reader. And I love that you just said that that writing the perspective of a woman challenges you as a writer. Does your wife, Jill, ever say, "Anthony, you've gotten this horribly wrong. This isn't how a woman thinks"? Or are you?
Jill is the first person to read my books. And of course, I work for her. She's my boss. When I'm making television, she's the producer, and she's the first person to read the scripts. And, she gives me quite heavy notes, quite critical notes. And she doesn't hold back, so forget the husband-wife thing. This is sort of, I'm the producer, you're the writer, get it right, do another draft. But I love working for her because she is so smart. In the books, there's, if they're lining up, there is Selena Walker, my brilliant editor for Real in our Penguin Random House here in London. And she's always pretty, she's pretty sharp too. For what it's worth, the movie is being, the TV series, the 6-parter we're doing, is also being directed by a woman. Rebecca, God, I'm going to forget her surname now with all the titles. But Rebecca is our director, Susanna is our producer. That's what I mean, it's a wonderful position to be in, to know I'm in such good hands.
Well, I am so excited because, Anthony, I was just having this conversation with a book reviewer for a magazine, and I was saying, for me, a golden age whodunit it's my favorite. I mean, I was a Nancy Drew girl, and I got the Christie girl, and so this is just where I find my most joy and feel the safest and the most, inspired and the most comforted as a reader. And I think you are just at the top of writing. You are such an elegant, polished writer, such a sophisticated writer. And I just think there is no one who is writing better than you. So I'm so excited to welcome you back. And I want to get a peek inside your process. So when you sit down at your desk, and you said you wrote this in a year because the producer wanted a third book to now turn into film. So were you like, okay, I have to write, this is a long one, it's 500 pages. So I have to write, let's say, is it about 130,000 words? And then I have to hit 10,000 words a month? Or how did you parse it out? How did you do it?
I never think about books in those terms of how many pages, how many words, how long do I have to spend writing it? I don't think about the labor of it. I think about the love of it. I think about what amazes, what excites me. And, I remember that after I had agreed to do this book, I had about 2 months that were really terrifying, because what I didn't have was an idea. And that's what gets me going. That is, if you like, the sort of, the flame that lights a fuse, that sets off the explosion of creativity that makes a book. And I remember thinking to myself, what is the milieu of this book? Now, what do I mean by milieu? I mean the world of the book. Where do the characters live? What turns them on? What excites them? What makes them sad? What makes one of them want to commit murder? What is the world that they will belong to? And I just couldn't think. And I was going, absolutely, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to turn around. I have to tell Leslie Manville I can't do it. There's not going to be a new series. And then suddenly the idea fell into my head. You heard me talking about it. Literary estates. Now, do you know what I mean by that? I mean, it's like Conan Doyle or Agatha Christie, this genius writer who could be your great-grandfather, your grandmother, your great-uncle, your great-aunt, whatever it is. This person who the whole world knows and whom the whole world loves. And in a funny way, they are the shadow over your whole life. If your name is Conan Doyle, everybody says, oh my God, are you related to Sir Arthur Conan Doyle? And you don't have your own life. You live in the shadow of somebody else's. What happens if you know that your ancestor was not a good person, but a very bad and cruel person? And what if you know that they didn't die a natural death, but they were murdered? And what happens if you then decide to hide the identity of their killer inside your new book? And that is the story of Marble Hall Murders. And once that idea had just fallen into my head, I was sort of home and dry, and I was writing with speed and with great joy. And I think, it's for your readers for your listeners to make up their own minds. But I do think that of the 3 books, it could be my favorite.
Ooh, Anthony, I love that. I love that. Because usually your writer will say, I don't pick favorites, but you're picking a favorite. I love it.
Of the 3, of the trilogy, I just think that it's because it's got some of the characters come back from the old books quite unexpectedly as well. One character I think will really surprise readers when they come across this person suddenly popping up again. But it's fun because, it's like a family now. I know this world. I know these people. And to go back into it 3 times, it's been a joy. It really has.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Emma is joining us from YouTube. She says, hey, Anthony, I am such a huge fan of all of your books. I'm just wondering if you will be doing a book signing in Ireland anytime in the future.
Emma, I wish I had done one this year. We've been shooting just outside Dublin for the last 6 weeks or so, 7 weeks. And I was actually meant to be there this week myself to go and visit the set and, hang out there a little bit. But because of my workload over here and promoting Magpie Murders, Marble Hall Murders, I'm doing an event tomorrow night in London. I wasn't able to. I love coming to Ireland. I will definitely, hopefully, I certainly, perhaps come back next year. I just need my publishers or my publishers to arrange it and to send me out there. I have a new book coming out next April, and let me just hope that Ireland's out. And if it isn't, I'm going to come anyway because I just love traveling the country, and I can't wait to get back.
Are we looking forward to another Horowitz and Hawthorne?
It is number 6, Sarah. Number 9. Next book is going to be Hawthorne and Horowitz, and I'm having a blast writing it. It's going very, very well. I'm about 30,000 words in. And it's not going to be a big, chunky book, this one. It's a little bit more manageable. So hopefully we'll finish it by about sort of August, September.
Yay. Well, I want you to come back for your next Hawthorne and Horowitz because I love the Hawthorne and Horowitz series. I love the dynamics between the two and the lovable, bumbling Anthony Horowitz on the page.
I'm one of those 2 things in real life. Lovable, bumbling. I'm one of those 2 things.
I love it. Well, for that interview, I will come into character and I will play Horowitz and call you Tony.
No, you must play Hawthorne. I should be Horowitz. We can argue. We can have a real fist fight on air.
Ooh, okay. I could be Hawthorne. I'll call you Tony. You'll get very angry. I love it. Chris is joining us from YouTube saying Anthony's enthusiasm is fantastic and makes his characters feel so real, so cool. I love that. Yes, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. That's very kind of you. I'm enthusiastic because, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be talking to Sarah again. Secondly, I'm talking about my favorite thing, which is books and stories. And as I say, I'm so excited for this book to come out in the States and for you to let me know what you think of it.
Well, I think, what's really interesting, Anthony, is that your love for writing comes through, not just on the screen here, but also on the page. And it's kind of fascinating, isn't it? That pages, which are, inanimate objects that are dead trees, I think I can feel, and you guys tell me what you think as you're watching, you can feel Anthony's love for these characters, for the process, his respect for the craft. You feel that energy zinging through the pages. You feel that love. Whereas sometimes you can feel an author maybe not loving it and just sort of phoning it in, but you feel Anthony Horowitz's love for the craft, love for the books for the characters. Let me know what you think in the comments. Robin saying, writing with such great joy. How wonderful. Yes, exactly. You feel his joy. I totally agree.
When you talk about phoning it in, it's something I could never do. I think that writing is an adventure. It's a journey. It's sort of and with every book I write, I have two things in mind. The first is I try to make it better than the one before in some way. I'm not saying I succeed in that, but it's sort of an aim not to just, to avoid formula, to avoid just, doing what you just said, Sarah, of just writing it because I've got a contract and because it has to be done and all the rest of it. And also I always try to do something that hasn't been done before, something completely new, something that sort of, just makes me smile. And I think that we've talked about joy, that word's come up on the screen a couple of times now. That's a great thing about reading and writing too. It is that extraordinary sense you get. Don't call them dead trees. I mean, books are bursting with life and with vigor and with empathy. How do we understand each other? We're talking to each other across thousands of miles, different cultures, different lives, different politics, different worlds, but stories are what unite us, bring us together. Books are the magic that make life, for me, worth living. So, there you go. That's what
class. Books are the magic that make life worth living. I love that. Absolutely. And see, we can feel your passion for, your respect for, and your love of not just the craft, but also the genre.
I read a lot of 19th century books. At the moment, I'm reading Thomas Hardy, who was a great 19th century British writer. And, he's been dead for 150 years or more. And yet somehow, when I'm reading his books, it's like he's in the room. I can feel him there. Books have that quality of just, the great books. Every time I read or reread them, they tell me something new.
Oh, I love that. Mark is saying Hawthorne and Horowitz series is easily the best book series I've ever read. It's so good, right, Mark? It's so good. And I think you had Anthony on for every single one of them. And because Anthony, you did the thing that you're never supposed to do. You broke the fourth wall and you put yourself in the book, something all editors probably dread and roll their eyes at, but you managed.
My editors did exactly those two things. They did dread it and they did roll their eyebrows. And they said, actually, you're going to roll their eyes, not their eyebrows. And they said to me, actually, you're not going to make this an ego trip. You're not going to be telling everybody how, clever you are or anything. And I said, no, it's the opposite. I'm going to be the sidekick. I'm going to be the most stupid person in the book. And now that, my publisher now, after 5 of them, can't wait for the next one as well. So I'm putting Susan on the back burner for a bit. I do, in case I know we talked about this briefly before we started, Sarah. I do have one more story in my head for her, which I might write in my next. I'm about to sign a new contract with my publishers, hopefully, and in that contract, I think it'll be maybe 2 Hawthorns and 1 more Susan. That's sort of what I'm hoping for.
Oh, Anthony, I want to talk about what you just said a few minutes ago, where you said that for 2 months, you're under this incredibly tight deadline. The TV producer is waiting for you to write the book so that she can then develop it into, on screen, and your mind goes blank. For me, the pressure would be crushing, almost paralyzing, because the panic of it would prevent me from being creative. Which were those 2 months those 2 months when you were not able to think of an idea, were they stressful, or were you just thinking it will come?
Yeah, I don't get stressed. I don't have writer's block. I don't believe in writer's block. I think that the sort of idea of what is writer's block, it's not an absence of ideas. It's actually the panic about not having ideas. It's a separate thing where you look at the blank page in front of you on your desk and you think, I'm never going to be able to fill this. I can't do it. The ideas aren't going to come. I'm over it. It's hopeless. Yeah. And that just makes the situation worse. So when I couldn't think of an idea, I wasn't sort of, I was having some sleepless nights actually, but by and large, what I was doing was trying to involve myself in other work. I was writing a TV series that had to be continued. I've got my friends, my family, my wonderful dog. I've got my house. I've got a life. Writing is a huge part of my life, but there are other bits of it too. So in that period, there were times when I was a little fretful, walking by the river where I live here and sort of just, where is this idea? What's it going to, but also always knowing that writers are like radio receivers. I don't know where the signal is coming from, but nonetheless, they are set up to receive it when it arrives. And that's how it was.
I love that. You guys, the book is out tomorrow here in the US, and you can pre-order it today from our favorite woman-owned independent bookstore. That is Murder by the Book, and the good folks at the bookstore will send it out first thing tomorrow. We ship worldwide. So no matter where you're watching from today, you can get your copy of Marble Hall Murders sent to you tomorrow morning. And again, support a woman-owned independent bookstore. Here is that link. While you are clicking, we have another Mark saying Anthony's passion for books is so inspiring. It's so inspiring. Robin saying, what an excellent quote. This, of course, referring to books are the magic that make life worth living. And Robin has a question. She wants to know, Anthony, what is your favorite treasure on the bookcase behind you? I see a skull.
I'm going to step out of the way.
Yeah.
See, actually, I mean, the skull up here was given to me by my mother because I had such an interest in the human brain. And I had this idea that the brain was like in a spaceship, and the spaceship was your skull. And it was where, everything was controlled. Everything that you do with your body is controlled by what's inside here. So that's a treasured object which my mother gave me. I have a lot of stuff which involves with Tintin. This little statue up here is a little figure, Rasco Capac, out of Prisoners of a Sun, and Hergé and Tintin was one of my first main influences. This here is a Stormbreaker computer out of the movie of Alex Rider, and so that's a sort of treasured memory of a movie that didn't completely work, but nonetheless, I invented the Stormbreaker computer in the first Alex Rider book. Over here, this is important. These are my various notebooks over here that are for my different books. Each one has notes and diagrams and drawings, and on the shelves above me are some of my books. So, and what is the most precious object on here? Well, I guess it would have to be this one, which is a photograph of me and my wife holding our second grandchild. That's Cosima in that picture, and I guess that's more precious than anything you can have in your life. Family comes first before everything.
Oh, I love that, Anthony. What a great question, Robin. And thank you for that.
Thank you so much for asking.
Thank you for that lovely walk down memory lane, Anthony. And I want to take a peek at some of the amazing praise that the book has earned. First of all, a starred review from Publishers Weekly, which raves Horowitz dazzles with the brilliant third entry in his Susan Ryeland series. Horowitz is at the top of his game here, linking past and present in a virtuoso finale worthy of Agatha Christie. Fans will clamor for the sequel. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better review, Anthony.
I have to say, I blush. It was a lovely thing, and the media, the critics in the different publications have been so supportive of my work that it's wonderful. It makes me very happy.
What I really liked, I mean, aside from the fact that they called you a virtuoso, which I personally would get tattooed on my face, is the fact that they said that they also, acknowledge that you're at the top of your game here. And you said that in each book, you try to do something a little bit better. And here, Publishers Weekly, one of the trade reviews is saying you've done it. What do you think you did better in this book?
That's a very interesting question, Sarah, and difficult one to answer. I think I've partly hinted at it because I know the characters so well, and because I've now written about them 3 times and written 3 quite big books about them, a certain sort of richness is there, a certain sense of confidence. These characters are living now on their own, almost without me, and I think that shows through. And I think also, but of the 3 plots, this one is. I don't know why it had worked out that way, since, as I say, it was so traumatic trying to think it up at the time, but it's just a very satisfying story. I think that when you get to the reveals, or there are 2 reveals in this book: who committed the murder in 1955 and who committed the murder in the present time. So there are 2 stories which are interlinking in this. I think that there is a very satisfying sort of sense of completion to it all. Plus, also, what happens to, I don't want to give anything away here, but what happens to Susan in this book is interesting. It's not your usual, sitting back and investigating a murder. Things are happening to her too, and not necessarily very, very pleasant things.
Right. And I think that is what we're talking about in terms of that extra level of sophistication, because you could have just written about the murder without Susan reading about having written about the murder. But to introduce that extra meta level of, like, the murder itself would be interesting, right? But now we're having this extra level of Susan reading about the murder. And as she's reading, she's unraveling.
She's
I mean,
learning
it's
and
so
she's
fun.
deducing. That's absolutely right. But you see, murder in a funny way is a door. Murder is a door that leads you into people's lives. You know, murder in real life is horrible, and we you know, we fear it, and we are, I guess, revolted by it. If somebody in our neighborhood or somebody we know is murdered, that's a terrible thing. But in books, it's an entertainment, and the reason it's an entertainment is that you understand that the author isn't relishing the murder, not this murder, this author anyway. I don't love murder. I don't love describing murder. But what I do like is the way that murder leads you to examine all the characters involved. People commit murder because they are in a very high emotional state. The stakes are very high. If you are found guilty of murdering somebody, you might lose your life, depending which state you're in. You might go to prison for a very, very long time. But certainly in the 50s, you would be killed. So you don't commit murder unless you really are serious about it. So the emotions are high, the passions are running high. It's a very dangerous, exciting environment, and the murder is the first way into it.
Well said. Well said. John is joining us from Northeast Ohio. Hey, John, good to have you. Robin saying, I love hearing about your absolutely love hearing about your treasures, Anthony. Thank you for sharing them with us. Mark wants to know, speaking of literary inheritances, will we ever see a sequel to the Sherlock Holmes books? House of Silk and Moriarty was exhilarating.
Well, thank you, Mark, for that very kind comment. I absolutely loved writing those books. House of Silk is a very important book to me. I think it is the first book for adults that I wrote that really worked and rose to the standard that I hoped for. Moriarty is one of my favorite books. Based, you might be interested to know, on a magic trick. The whole book works on the principle of a card trick. And that's how I thought it up. And I love the twisty ending of that, the sort of, you know, the shock that you get in the last chapter. A sequel, a third one. Well, I do have one thought in my mind, and that is there is an untold story that Watson mentions that it's a case that Sherlock Holmes solved called the Giant Rat of Sumatra. And nobody knows what that rat was. Was it a statue of some sort, or was it some kind of demon? Was it the name of a ship? What is the Giant Rat of Sumatra? What happened in that story? I do have a sort of slight itch to one day write that. And so I have no plans to do it anytime soon. There are going to be 12 Hawthorne novels, and I've only done 6 of them so far. I'm on the 6th now. So there's another 5 to go after that. I've already mentioned another Susan Ryeland story that's in my head that I want to do. I have another slightly peculiar murder mystery, a historical murder mystery that I'm quite keen to write about too. So that's a lot of books in my sort of to be written pile. But yeah, I think I probably will come back one more time to Sherlock Holmes, and it will be the Giant Rat of Sumatra.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. This is fantastic. And one of the questions on my list, Anthony, was because you do, you know, write about a literary, not the inheritance is the wrong word, but where someone manages the estate and then picks.
I think it is a literary inheritance, yeah.
Oh,
an estate and an inheritance, whatever, yeah.
Because in doing a Moriarty book, you were taking that.
Sarah, I have worked with many literary estates. I've worked with the Sherlock Holmes estate, the Ian Fleming estate. I wrote 3 James Bond novels. The Agatha Christie estate. For years, I was writing Poirot on television. I've also worked with but I knew the Roald Dahl estate and still do. And occasionally see them. And I also know the Hergé estate, Tintin. I worked on a Tintin movie years ago. So Tintin has always been part of my life. Hergé was one of my heroes growing up. I mentioned, you know, the Tintin stuff you can see behind me. Just in that corner over there are Thompson and Thompson, the two stupid detectives. So I have a good familiarity with the workings of literary estates. And I should say immediately that none of those estates were in any way mean or horrible like the one in my book.
So you did not uncover a real life murder.
I only had good times with all the people I worked with. They were all very supportive and kind.
Because that is because I mean, I think it's such an incredible honor to be chosen by just one estate, like just the Ian Fleming estate, or just the Agatha Christie estate, or just the Arthur Conan Doyle estate. But you, Anthony, have been chosen by all of these estates, plus the others that you mentioned. I mean, the solemnity and the honor, but also the burden to get it right, because you want to honor the original creator's creation.
That's exactly, Sarah, you know me too well. That is exactly right. That is exactly what it is. It's an honor, it's a privilege, but it's also a great challenge, because you are stepping into the shoes of writers who are better than you, or better than me anyway. And, I revere Christie and Doyle and Fleming. And it's a reason why I took the books on. I wouldn't just write a continuity novel, an author that I only half like, but the opportunity to live with these characters, to go on a mission with James Bond, or to spend, several months of my life, 6 months, living in my imagination inside 221B Baker Street in the company of the two greatest friends in literature. It was just, how can I say no? So
oh my God, the honor. I mean, wow. It would be so incredibly mind-blowing and exciting to live, as you said, inside these worlds.
Yes.
It's so exciting. You guys, we are out of time. Time flies when you're having this much fun. But I just want to remind you again that the book drops tomorrow in the US. Anthony is coming on to give us the exclusive inside sneak peek. And the book is available from our favorite woman-owned independent store, and from all stores, but you want to support a woman-owned independent bookstore, and that is Murder by the Book. So whether you're watching with us on Facebook or YouTube, here is that link. Click and pre-order it right now today, so that the book will be shipped to you by the good folks at the bookshop bright and early tomorrow morning. And I have put the rest of the incredible praise, just a sample of the incredible praise that Anthony's book has earned. I mean, rave reviews from Library Journal saying another marvelous metafictional mystery. I absolutely love that. We have a rave review from the Financial Times saying the dividing lines between reality and fiction, which is a Horowitz trademark, are deliciously intertwined. Delicious indeed. The praise just goes on and on and on. So all of the praise is here in the comments. You can peruse the praise at your leisure. And of course, Kirkus weighing in, calling this Horowitz's most intricately plotted whodunit yet, and we're all Horowitz fans here, so that praise don't come cheap, because they're all intricately plotted, but Kirkus designating this as the most intricately plotted. So congratulations on that. And again, here is that link to pre-order. You guys, thank you so much. Oh, we have Raul joining us from LA saying, thank you for all of your novels and TV scripts, Anthony. Thank you from Los Angeles.
And thank you to you, Raul. My youngest son is in Los Angeles at the moment, so I hope you're looking after him.
Oh, yes, please do look after the youngest Horowitz. Anthony Curran saying, once again, Anthony, the legend, Mark Curran.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. It has been a pleasure to host the legend that is Anthony Horowitz, to get the inside scoop. And from the sun-tanned legend joining us from the sun-kissed land of Corfu over there in Greece, where he is currently filming. Anthony, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to give us the inside scoop on Marble Hall Murders. Y'all, here is that link again. Don't sleep on ordering that book. Raul promises he will look in on your son.
Thank you, Raul.
All right, y'all, that is a wrap on Mystery Monday. May your week be off to a killer start. May the days and pages fly by. I'll be back at 7 p.m. Join me then. Anthony, thank you again.
Sarah, thank you. It's been lovely.
Yay.